What's up? This is my Monster Hunter Rise guide to Charge Blade, one of the most adaptable weapons in the game. I will first give a quick summary of the mechanics, then teach you the basics and moveset of the weapon, and come back to the mechanics in full detail later. Give you some tips and recommended combos after that. Then go into more advanced things like guard points and counterattacks. Then finish off with your wire bug and switch skills. So, let's start the show. Okay, Charge Blade has two forms, Sword and Shield and Axe mode. You attack in Sword and Shield mode to build a charge on your files in the top left. You start out gray, then go yellow to red as you keep attacking. But if you keep attacking while in red, it will go bright red. This is bad. So the rule here is to attack till red, then put that charge into your files and transfer those files into your shield to give your shield added bonuses. Or use them in axe mode for bonus damage. Or even use them in your most powerful attack, the Ultra Elemental Discharge. And lastly, if your shield is charged, you can also charge your blade, giving that 2 buffs as well. So, that was a quick summary. Let's move on to the basics and moveset. So, let's go over Sword and Shield first. Your standard combo is X 3 times, with the last hit doing the most damage. Next, if you press A and X together, you'll do a forward moving slash. This is the same attack you'll do if you draw your weapon while moving with X. Pressing A and X again after an attack will do a shield thrust. This hits 2 times. You can do this at any point in time in your combo, and it will reset your combo. Now if you press A and X again after a shield thrust, you'll do an Ant Elemental Discharge, changing your weapon into Axe mode for one attack, then switching right back into Sword and Shield. And if your shield is charged, you'll do an Ultra Discharge instead. Now, with your shield charged, if you still want to do an Ant Discharge instead of an Ultra Discharge, when you start up an Ultra Discharge, press back X relevant to where your character is facing, not the camera. So, if your character is facing right, back X would be left X. Now if you just press A, you'll do a weak rising slash. What you do here is you hold it to a point, then let it go. Now if you hold it for too long, you will still do the weak rising slash. So the rule here is to not press it, not hold it for too long, hold it till you cock the sword back, then let it go. Now ZR is your guard. You can do one of 3 things here. You can push A to put the charge into your files. You can push X during guard to morph your sword into axe mode. And lastly, if you press A again while charging, you'll go into axe mode and do your Elemental Discharge 1. Then pressing ZR while in axe mode will change you back to sword mode. Oh, and before I forget, you can move around while guarding. Very slowly though. And last but not least, after at least one initial attack, if you press A plus any direction, you will do a fade slash in that direction. This is good for repositioning yourself, so don't forget about it. So that's everything Sword and Shield. Let's move on to Axe mode. Now you can draw into Axe mode with ZR. It will be the same if you draw your weapon while moving with ZR. Now you move around slowly in Axe mode, and dodging will cause a good chunk of stamina, and you won't go far. Now Axe mode X combo is a rising slash and a downward slash. You can do this infinitely. Then your A combo is Elemental Discharge 1 into Elemental Discharge 2 into Ant Elemental Discharge, or Ultra Discharge if your shield is charged. Also, after an elemental discharge 2, if you delay the X input, you will do a axe slam instead of a rising axe slash. Now, if you press X while moving, you will move in that direction and do a dash axe slam. You cannot do this mid-combo, you have to do it from neutral. And again, ZR will take you back to sword and shield mode. And finally, if you press A and X while in axe mode, you will go right into your amp discharge. And again, if your shield is charged, it'll be an ultra discharge. Not gonna say that again. You got it. Got it good. And that's it for X mode. Okay, that's the entire move list for Charge Blade. Now, let's go into the mechanics in more detail. Now, like I said earlier, you attack in sword shield mode. As you attack, you will build a charge on your files on the top left. They will start out gray, then go yellow, then red. As you keep attacking, you want to put the charge into your files at red. Remember, if you keep attacking at red, it will go bright red, and all your attacks will bounce. So, at red, charge your files. Also, so you know, if you charge your files at yellow, you will only get 3 files. Now the next best thing to do with those files is to put them into your shield. To do this, you press ZR as soon as you start up a amp discharge, making all the files you currently have move into your shield. Now giving your shield 3 benefits: more damage in axe mode, and less knockback when blocking. Let me show you. As you can see, blocking without your shield charge will see you get knocked back more times than not giving you the ability for a counterattack. While blocking with your shield charge will see you get knocked back less more times than not, and open the door for counterattacks. More on that later. Oh, and your shield thrust now does file damage. And before I forget, blocking can also charge your files slowly depending on the attack. Also, file damage is just extra damage that you can add to your attacks that count as impact damage. This can knock down or KO a monster. And in case you're wondering, how long your shield stays charged will depend on how many files you put into your shield. Each file you put into your shield will give it 30 seconds of charge. So putting all 5 files into your shield is ideal as it gives you a 2-minute and 30-second charge. And when you have 30 seconds left of that charge, your shield icon in the top left will begin to blink. Okay, now that your shield is charged, let's talk about charging your sword. And remember, your shield has to be charged before you can charge your sword. So, to charge your sword, you hold down guard, then press A, and then hold X. And when the shield locks into the sword, let it go. And now your sword is charged. But if you hold X for too long, you will not charge your sword and you will just do a rising slash. And if you charge your sword while putting a charge into your file, you will charge your sword faster, as you can see. So now your sword is charged. It will only stay charged for 60 seconds and has 2 buffs, which is now your sword does file damage and your sword has innate mind's eye. What does that mean? Your attacks will not bounce no matter what, even if you go into bright red on a hard surface. Also, yeah, you will use 1 file in Elemental Discharge 1 and Elemental Discharge 2. And yes, you will still use the file if you miss the attack. Now, let's talk about your most powerful attack, the Ultra Elemental Discharge. When you land the attack, you will use all the files you currently have, creating shockwaves with a number of shockwaves depending on how many files you had. Also, the element of the shockwave will depend on the element of your charge blade. If your charge blade does not have an element tied to it, it will be impact by default. While the amped elemental discharge will only use one file. Now, I would recommend doing the amped version of the discharge over the ultra version sometimes because, as you can see, you recover faster from the amped discharge, not leaving you open for so long if you miss the attack. And yes, you can change direction of the attack mid-swing. So now, let me show you some of my recommended combos and give you a few tips. The first two combos are best for building files. The first one is charge double slash into shield thrust on repeat. And the next one is charge double slash into spinning slash on repeat. These two will build your files very quickly. Now the next two combos I do for damage. I will morph into axe mode, then do an elemental discharge 2 into morph slash back into sword and shield mode, and keep the combo going from there. My second combo for damage is sometimes I will morph into axe mode and immediately press ZR to morph back into sword and shield mode and keep going my combo from there as well. Now, one of my tips would be to double charge. What I mean by that? I mean, get your files to red, charge your files, and then get the charge back to red again. This can set you up nicely to do back-to-back ultra discharges on a downed monster or in an ideal situation where you can land it. Now, my last tip. Let's say you're too close to a monster for your ultra discharge to hit them fully. You'll hit them with your axe maybe, but the shockwave will definitely miss. What I like to do is one slash, fade slash back, shield thrust into your ultra elemental discharge. This will give you room and reposition you nicely. And that's it. That's all for my tips. The mechanics, you know everything. So, let's get into the more advanced things. Alright, we're going to teach you about guard points, what they are, where the guard points are, and counterattacks, and what you can do. Also, we're going to cover your wire bug and switch skills here too. Now, a guard point is a moment in time where your shield is presented out in front of you during an attack or animation. If you are hit in that moment, you will automatically block. If your shield is charged, you will do foul damage to your attacker. Your first guard point is in your spinning slash. And as you can see, if you are hit during that time your shield is in front of you, you will block automatically. Now, let me show you where all your other guard points are in your move list. At the end of your fade slash in any direction, you have a guard point. In the startup of your morph to axe mode is a guard point. And the main guard point I use. Also, there is a guard point when morphing back into sword and shield mode as well. And yes, that also means there's one in your elemental up round slash. Now, this last guard point timing is tighter than the others, but it's your ZR draw attack. This one can save your life. Now let's say you're running around with low health, trying to find a time where you can safely drink a potion. You think you're in the clear, but the monster turns and launches an attack towards you. This guard point can save you in a situation where you would have been dead. Now, let's talk about counterattacks, things you can do after a guard point. And you have three options after a guard point. One is your elemental discharge, and another, obviously, is your ultra discharge. And lastly, your last counterattack is X, which will morph you into Axe mode and do an Axe Slam. Now, that's all of the counterattacks you have after a guard point. And oh, before I forget, it does not need to be a guard point in order for you to counterattack. You can counterattack anytime you block an attack and you don't suffer too much knockback. Now, let's get to your wire bug and switch skills. Now, your switch skill by default is counter peak performance, and your wire bug skill is morphing advance. You can only do these while your weapon is drawn. So let's talk about your wire bug skills first, then move on to your switch skills. So to do your morphing advance, your weapon has to be drawn again, and you press LZ and X. This will have you pull yourself in that direction and morph into Axe mode. This is really good for mobility. It can help you catch up with downed monsters or getting out of the way of an incoming attack. And yes, good for repositioning yourself for a big attack as well. Now let me show you what you can do after a morphing advance. You can roll after a morphing advance. You can also press ZR to switch back into sword and shield mode after a morphing advance. You can also go right into your elemental discharge too, and even do an ultra or amp discharge after morphing advance. This is great for repositioning yourself for a big attack. And yes, you can seriously alter the angle of the attack, even do almost a complete 180 after morphing advance. And it's the same for your other options after morphing advance as well. Next, let's talk about your wire bug recovery options. You can use your wire bug recovery and draw your weapon mid-air in Axe mode and go right into an ultra discharge. You can go in any direction with this as well, making it great for a comeback attack. You can also do a jumping slash into a shield thrust followed by your ultra discharge. This is very nice. These recovery attacks can catch a monster who just celebrated hitting you off guard. Now that's it for the wire bug skills. Let's cover the last thing on the list, your switch skills. Now, let's talk about your switch / silkbind skills. Let's start off with the first three you have by default. The condensed elemental slash gives you the ability to charge your sword, giving the bonuses I talked about earlier. Morph slash is the animation when switching from sword to axe and axe to sword. And the third and final skill, which is my favorite, it's counter peak performance. Let's talk about counter peak performance first. This will block one attack, and when it does, it will fill all of your files. This is great because it has one extra counterattack along with all the others that come with guard points. Activation of this is almost instant, giving you the ability to stay top off easy, and will stay out for a little over 3 seconds. Now, this new counterattack that you have with perfect peak performance will allow you to instantly charge your sword. So with this ability, you can keep your shield and sword charged and your files filled without skipping a beat and staying in the action. And yes, you can activate this mid-combo to stay in the fight and keep dishing out damage. Now this move has its cons too. Do it too early, thinking a monster will attack you, and it just moves around you, you're stuck in place for 3 seconds. This move can easily get you killed if you rely on it too much. It will only block one attack, meaning if you get hit again after blocking one attack, you will be taking that hit. And this only blocks about 95% of attacks. It will not block grab attacks, so you know. Next, let's talk about your condensed spinning slash. With this, you will lose the ability to charge your sword if you pick this up. Now, there is only 2 ways to get into spinning slash mode. The first would be to charge your axe as if you were charging your sword. Now you can tell if you're in spinning axe mode if the axe icon in the top left is glowing red. Now the second way to get into spinning axe mode is to push X after a counter peak performance is hit. You cannot get into spinning axe mode just by morphing into axe mode or drawing into axe mode. Now spinning axe mode has no new combos, but a new mechanic. If you just press the button, you will do an attack like normal. But if you hold it during the impact, your axe will spin and hit the target multiple times alongside the damage from the actual hit. And these extra hits will allow you to regenerate your files in axe mode. So you could use a file in Elemental Discharge 1 and 2 and get the file right back if you held the button. I personally wouldn't use this spinning axe mode because I lose the ability to charge my sword. Not a fan of spinning axe mode. And you're more likely to make mistakes or get smacked in the face while using your axe mode. Next up, let's talk about your counter morph slash. Not really a big change here. It just changes your morph animation, making you keep your shield in front of you for longer when going to axe mode, and making your axe morph animation slow. But changing the placements of your guard point when morphing from axe to sword mode. And your last switch skill is Axe Hopping, replacing your counter peak performance. With this skill, you will slam your axe into the ground and pull yourself into the air with a wire rope. This will give you 4 options, but you can aim in any direction while in the air. Option 1 is to press X to do an axe slam midair. Option 2 is to press ZR to do a jumping morph slash back to sword and shield mode. Option 3 and 4 is, you guessed it, Ultra Discharge and Amp Discharge, respectively. A will do the Amp Discharge. A plus X will do the Ultra Discharge. Now, Axe Hopper is a good skill for hitting monsters directly in the head, and it's kind of fun, and a quick way to get to your Ultra Elemental Discharge. Now, that's everything. The whole guide. worked really hard on this. First time recorded vocals. This was ridiculously time consuming, bro. So, if you made it this far and you learned something, please leave a like on the video. Yeah? We cool? We cool? We cool. Peace.